There we go, 156 slight arrow headed up. Kind of had a little bit of a rough time. I am dealing with PMS right now. Found out that the basal, I had to manipulate a new basal 2, and I found out it works great, but I still may need to have more insulin at my meals. And even if I pre-bolus, I still head up really high. And also the fact that my PDM is basically shot because they sent me a new one because it wasn't properly communicating with my pods. As a safety check, they want to give me a new one, which I don't blame them, because if this thing isn't properly communicating with the pods, how is it ensuring that I'm getting the proper insulin? That may be part of the reason why these past 3 or 4 days I've been battling a lot of blood sugars that will go to 200 and sit there and not come down. But I think it's many different factors. I think definitely ovulation and PMS is one of the factors, but I also think it has partially to do with this. Having a little more stress and anxiety too, thinking like having the anxiety of my endo team is still kind of sitting in my head, but at this point, because my blood sugar was headed up with 145 with the straight arrow headed up. This is what I mean by being bold with insulin. My blood sugar was headed up so quick at that point that the insulin I had could not chase it. So I took a additional unit. And you can see now it's starting to level off into the 160s right now. And it's going to take a while for it to level off. It may level off at 160, 170, 180, and then it'll come down. But to think about it, if I didn't do that, my blood sugar could be double arrows headed up right now. What I did was not risky. What I did was being bold with insulin. What I did just saved me from a blood sugar of over 200 probably. And that's what I mean with being bold with insulin. And you be bold in a safe manner. I didn't give myself 3 units. I gave myself 1. I didn't dump 10 units. I dumped 1. It's being smart and understanding that how your body is going to react to different things. So with that being said, let's jump into today's video. Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. And today's video is going to be kind of a dual purpose video. The first part is going to be me doing a 1-month review on the Omnipod DASH system. I currently have it on my arm. I will be changing it out today. The pod actually expired an hour ago, but I have like 14 units of insulin left. I'm just going to let it go until I get my new PDM set up, because why would I put a new pod on this old PDM that doesn't want to communicate with the pods when I have a brand new one to set up? So first of all, I'll give you the backstory behind what happened. Those of you that just joined my channel, I recently got the Omnipod DASH insulin pump after doing 10 months of multiple daily injections. And let me tell you, it's been fantastic, but every week since I've had the insulin pump, I've had to call Omnipod for either a replacement pod or a system error. This last time was a system error, and the representative told me that it was something actually wrong within the internals of the PDM, or the Personal Diabetes Manager. For those of you that do not have the Omnipod, the PDM is the equivalent of you having the actual computerized device hooked up to a tube and into an infusion set. So this is my computer, or the brains of the pump that controls the pods that I attach in my body. This is what I tell to give me insulin. This is what I tell, here's my blood sugar. It'll suggest a bolus. I can put a temp basal on. You get the picture here. So there's something actually wrong with my PDM. And I kind of thought so because it would always have a hard time communicating. And finally, it actually shut off an insulin pump that was only on my body for 50 hours. So they actually had to, in addition to replacing and sending me a brand new PDM, they had to replace another Omnipod. This is the 3rd pod I've had replaced. 2 of them had failed, and 1 of them I deployed on accident, and they gave me a courtesy one because I was under a pretty high intense stress situation when I was changing my Omnipod out. And because I'm new, and because obviously you only get shipped out so many pods, they wanted to make sure I had enough, and I thought that was absolutely amazing. I have nothing bad to say about their customer service, but that is something I will talk about then. And they also sent me an additional Contour Next 1 meter system, which I'm kind of like, not necessary, but you know what, you never know if my other meter breaks, or my other Contour meter goes bad, or I run into somebody who's in a tight spot as a diabetic and needs a meter. I can at least give them something, and you know, it's always good to have extras, I guess, right? So now that I talked about the backstory, I'm going to first sit down and tell you my review of having the Omnipod excuse me, my blood sugar's starting to level off now. My review of having the Omnipod DASH for about a month. So I got like about 9 different things I'm going to talk about, kind of just by category, and I'm going to kind of pull stuff out of my head, but I have a list here so that I know like what I'm talking about in each category, that I'm not like jumping around. So the first category I'm going to talk about is the comfort and the insertion. So I find so far that the Omnipod is extremely comfortable and lightweight to wear. It feels a little bit heavier than wearing a Dexcom. Right now my Dexcom G6 is on my right arm, and my Omnipod is on my left arm with the cannula facing this way. I will be rotating it to my abdomen after I set up my new PDM. So I've had the Omnipod on the back of my arms, abdomen, and my thighs, both kind of the back of my thighs and the front of my thighs, and I have not had a problem wearing them in any of the locations. They're all comfortable. However, if you do wear them on any of your appendages, such as your arms or your legs, be careful when you take off pants or underwear or bras. As ladies, you can easily snag stuff, so just make sure that you stretch it enough over so that you can get your shirt or whatever you need to get off. But I have actually found it very comfortable to wear in different areas of my body. And the insertion is super comfortable. It takes about 5 to 7 seconds after you press confirm for the cannula to be deployed. And the cannula is a soft plastic blue cannula that sits at about, I think it's a 45-degree angle it sits at, or 50. It sits like this. It's not like a straight, like you would give an injection at a 90-degree. It sits like this. I can actually show you right here on the old pod that actually failed on me with the PDM. There's what the cannula looks like. It's soft and it's flexible and it's plastic, and it's 6 millimeters long, meaning it is the same length as a syringe. At least this syringe that I'm using. This is a 6 millimeter BD Veil half unit 6 millimeter 30 gauge insulin syringe. These are what I used when I had pens and I was trying to draw that last little bit of insulin, or if I thought that my pen needles were leaking, I would use syringes for that purpose, or if I felt like my pen needles were back leaking, or I was just having a really off diabetes day, knowing that at least a syringe would be guaranteed to push insulin into your body and not back leak. That's what I always had these for, and now I carry them with vials. I've been having to give myself quite a few injections, number one, because I'm so picky about my blood sugars. If I get above 200 for an extended period of time, I will use a syringe. I will give an injection. And there's nothing wrong with thinking the way I think. I'm just picky about it, and there's nothing wrong with the way I'm thinking, but at least I know I have these to back me up. But I wanted to let you know that Omnipod's cannula compares to a typical insulin syringe. So, nothing wrong with the way it's inserted, the comfortability, anything like that. I have nothing bad to say about how it feels. I do notice, however, though, the later on that the older the pod gets, the more I can feel the insulin go in my body. It'll start burning, or especially like on my abdomen, I get really itchy and I get almost like a little welt that comes up and then it heals over. When I put it on my arms or my thigh, I don't get the same welts or the same itchiness, but I definitely notice on the more muscular areas of my body, such as my arm and my thigh, I do feel burning sensation with the insulin as the pod gets older. And I don't know if it's just my body or if it's just something my body does in response to an older site. I have no clue, but I just put up with it. It's not really that bad. It's kind of the equivalent of those of you that take Lantus, or even me, if I were to take an injection of Humalog on multiple daily injections, I do remember sometimes that the Humalog would burn too going into my body. Now, the second thing I'm going to talk about is the ease of using the PDM and setting up the PDM and the pods and changing the pods. Very easy, very simple. The beauty of this PDM is that when you go through the change process, it actually kind of walks you step by step through to make sure that you're not forgetting anything and that you're listening for the appropriate sounds. I'll show you guys more as I change. I'll do a video how you change an Omnipod out. Like a lot of people do them, but I have the Dash and it's a little bit different. And now that I'll have a good PDM to use, you don't have to worry about poor communication in the beginning. But it's very, very easy to use. You have to unlock your PDM with a pin, and then from there you can see your IOB, your last blood sugar, your basal rates, and pod info. As you can see, I am near my pod and it's not communicating. So this tells you that there's something definitely wrong with this PDM. It also wouldn't hold a charge very well, which I found kind of strange. that the battery would just go tank. So there's definitely something wrong with this, but here you go, you can see 12 units left in my pod, so I'm just going to let it run for a little bit until I have this video done. But the PDM's pretty easy to navigate around. The menus aren't confusing. I know a lot of you that have the old PDM. I've been reading from some articles or looking through some of your guys' stuff, and some of you had a hard time like going through the menus in the old one because it was more vague, like push this and then scroll or button through all these things, whereas on the Omnipod DASH PDM, once you unlock your PDM, all you have to do is hit these like 3 bars in the corner, and it'll take you to your whole menu where everything is, and you can just scroll and select what you need. It's that simple, instead of having to like push a button and then hope you might go under basil, and then you would go under temp basil, and then you would go under set, and all these different things, whereas like temp basil and basil are separate. Because a normal basil versus a temporary basil are going to be 2 totally different mechanisms that you want running. So the easy use is nothing that I'm going to complain about, and all that stuff. So the third thing I'm going to talk about is the PDM itself. How do I like it? I do like that it is rechargeable, that you don't have to be buying AAA batteries or AA batteries every time you want to change, keep the battery life going. You can adjust your brightness, you put a lock screen, you can even put your name and your phone number on the back. I obviously do not have my phone number for this example because obviously I can't be giving up my phone number to y'all. But there you go, 2.95. It just adjusted a little bit as more gets dumped into my body. But you have a background, you have a pin, and then it tells you up here how many units are left, the time, the Bluetooth's turned on, and the percent of the battery. The PDM is touchscreen. These 2 buttons here are non-functional. This one is a back button. That is the only functional button on the bottom. On the side here, you have your volume, and you have your power on, off, or your wake button. And then up here is where you charge it, or you upload your data through your computer to Gluco. So the PDM is pretty good. However, I do find that it is very touchy. The screen as a touch screen is either too sensitive or not sensitive enough. I feel like it's really like cheaply made, and I feel like if I were to drop this that it would crack and screw everything up. It doesn't come in with a built-in blood sugar meter, and because I've been having problems with mine, it just makes it more negative to deal with different things. But overall, it's not a bad PDM. There's nothing really wrong with it. And because it looks like an actual technological device, I feel like if you were to leave this laying around versus the old style, I feel like somebody would be more willing to take this and steal it because it looks like a smartphone. It looks like an Android phone. Whereas with the old one looked like a really bulky looking not really a medical device, but it looked less attractive or less techy or less new or modern, that people would probably not want to steal it. But I feel like with this one, it's more apt to be stolen. And I kind of like the touchscreen, but I also don't like the touchscreen at the same time, because I feel like for certain things it would be easier to hit a home button and push down, or hit confirm with the regular button instead of having to always be looking and having to physically touch with your finger to get it to go. This PDM definitely needs some improvements, but because it is a new system, I understand that there's going to be glitches and bugs. That's why I think I've been having so many issues with pod failures and PDM issues, and I'm just going to deal with it and roll with the punches. But overall, the PDM, I would give it, if I had to rank it out of a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, I'd give it a 8. So I actually would have rather have had the old system first. That's just me, because I feel like it was more durable. There was a built-in blood sugar meter. There's no touchy screens. But some of the things like the ease of using the menus you can only get with the Dash. So kind of horse apiece either direction, but I really would have liked to experience the old PDM first. First thing I'm going to talk about is the customer service. I have nothing terrible to say about Omnipod's customer service. That is absolutely excellent. They have been so kind, so friendly, and so willing to replace things and explain the reference codes to me and explain what's going on to me in a clear and concise manner that makes me feel good knowing that I chose a pump company that is going to stand behind their product. And Omnipod has impressed me to the point where they have. And all the representatives I've talked to have been very kind, very friendly, and I have nothing horrible to say about them. They've been quick. They send things so quick. Like, I had this problem on a Saturday, and it was sent out to me on a Tuesday. Like, that's pretty fast, considering that I live in Wisconsin, and Omnipod is out in Massachusetts, and that's kind of a hike to Wisconsin from Massachusetts. So, they've been quick, they've been concise, they've been on the ball, they've been friendly, they've been helpful. I have nothing horrible to say about their customer service, and if you've had a poor experience with them, I'm sorry, and that's a shame, because I have nothing but good things to say about them. And do know that if you have a problem with a pod, it doesn't work for the full 72 hours, something's going goofy with your PDM, you get an error message on your PDM, you need to call them and explain the situation, give them the reference number, and more than likely it's not your fault. All the ones that I've had fail on me were not my fault. It was just a computer error or a computer issue, and they have gladly replaced the products because they want you to be safe. They want you to have things that you need, and they don't want you to be dealing with faulty products, because we all have lives to live, and obviously, as type 1 diabetics, if we are dealing with a faulty pump, we are not getting enough insulin, and therefore, if we're not getting enough insulin, our blood sugars go high and can make us sick and cause us to go into diabetic ketoacidosis. So, great customer service, nothing bad to say about that. Number 5, I'm going to talk about the blood sugar meter. So I'm just going to hold this box up. This is what the blood sugar meter looks like. I kind of already did a compare-contrast video about the One Touch Vario Flex versus the Contour Next 1 meter, so feel free to go check that out. But this meter I absolutely love. All you have to do on the PDM is, if you actually check your blood sugar, if you go to either the menu or when you go to bolus, you can enter BG and it will ask you to sync to the meter. Make sure it is turned on and within, a few feet of the PDM, and it'll sync within 5 seconds and it'll upload. The accuracy of this meter is fantastic. The ease of portability is fantastic. I love how small it is. It's portable, and it fits so nicely into the case that they provide with you. You have, obviously, you have your meter, you have lancing devices. Here's where the PDM would go, a backup pod to change, test strips, and your vial of insulin, and a whole bunch of syringes and lancets I have put into here. Absolutely love the my new meter. I think it is great. The test strips are more affordable. It's accurate, and nothing bad to say about the blood sugar meter. But if you want to know more about the Contour Next 1 meter, feel free to go check out my video. You can just type in comparing blood sugar meters, One Touch Vario Flex versus Contour Next meter. I made that video about a week or a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago, on my channel as one of my weekly videos. So feel free to go check that out if you want more information on that meter. Number 6 is durability. And I kind of talked about this a little bit on the first thing I talked about. But durability-wise, I feel like the pods are very, very sturdy. I've had them under sweat. I've taken hot showers with them. I've bumped them into walls and they have not come off. The adhesive sticks for the full 3 days. I mean, I'm impressed wholeheartedly that something this small can be so mighty, and that something this small has so much internal components while being able to give me insulin that I need on a regular basis, to me is mind-blowing how far we've come with technology. Now, unlike, I think the PDM is not very durable. I said I think it feels very cheap, and I feel like if I were to drop this right now onto a concrete surface, or if I were to jostle it around too much, I feel like this would get nicked and dinged and scratched and beat up. So the pods, I'd say, are way better in durability than the actual PDM, but I think that's kind of the point, because the pods should be more durable, as they are probably going through more rough and tough times of you moving your appendages, taking showers, being active, sweating, swimming, you name it. They have to be durable. Number 7, I'm going to talk about notifications and screaming pods and kind of what that sounds like. So screaming pods, they just make a loud, high-pitched squeal when they fail. I've had one squeal on me, and that was on the golf course when I had my first pump failure. I was told by the trainer and by many of you that you should always carry a paper clip with you, because if you cannot get the pod for whatever reason to quiet down, even after dismissing the notification on your PDM that there is a spot on the actual pod right up here that you can actually push into, and it will silence the pod. So that's how you can shut off a screaming pod if it were to not shut up. You can also do a rock. I've seen people slam rocks on these. The A team, they have twin girls, Aaliyah and Alana, with type 1 diabetes, and one of their pods failed, so they literally dropped a rock on it, and it worked to stop it from screaming. It basically just busts the internals at that point. But unlikely that you're going to have access to a rock. You're more likely to have access to a paperclip, and if you can store a paperclip in your case, you will always have something to silence the pods. As far as notifications go, you can customize different notifications. You can make different ones if you want to say check a blood sugar after this, check a blood sugar after that. You can actually have a misbolused one if you accidentally inputted carbs and forgot to bolus. There's a confidence reminder that it will beep every time that your PDM is finished delivering a bolus. I have that shut off now because I just listen for the clicks when I know it is no longer doing its big clicks, that the pod is done. And I'm also checking my PDM regularly, so if something were to be missed, I would notice immediately if my full bolus was not delivered. The only two reminders that I have on here in notifications is pod expiration to warn me 2 hours prior to a pod expiring and when my reservoir gets below 10 units. And I also have it alert me for 90 minutes after a pod change to check my blood sugar. I usually do check it on a meter. Sometimes I'll just look at my Dexcom, and if I make sure I'm not going really high or really low, because that would either indicate that the pod is in a bad absorption site, or if you're going low, you may have put it in a muscle, and that is actually possible because insulin gets absorbed faster into a muscle. So the notifications are nice because you can customize them to meet your needs. But there are some, obviously, notifications like system errors and stuff that no matter where you are, you can't have them silenced. If your PDM just fails or something really bad happens, it will basically scream at you or notify you and to get your attention. Number 8, I'm going to talk about Gluco. Gluco is the portal in which your doctor will look at your PDM data. This is where you export your PDM data. This is where you sync your blood sugar readings, your bolusing, your blood, your carb counts, and all the different things. And the nice thing about Gluco is that it also syncs with all my Dexcom data. So all my Dexcom data from Clarity also gets shoved over into Gluco, so they can compare with my insulin dosing to my Clarity data to get a better picture of what's going on with my blood sugars and the management that I am doing right now. Gluco is very easy to use. I like that they have different versions of different graphs. I will delve more into that later, but there are spaghetti graphs you can look at, percentiles, you can look at 1 week's worth of blood sugars, look at patterns, 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 month averages, all these different things. So Gluco is an amazing website. Feel free to go check that out. Or obviously, if you are an Omnipod user, you will already have a Gluco account. Number 9 is the ability to have customizable foods and basal rates for when you need it. So there's a local pizza palace near my house, and I figured out 45 carbs works great for the amount that I eat, so I have that as a customizable food. I have pizza, 45 carbs, so that all I have to do when I bolus is I can add a custom food, and it'll automatically add it to my carb count. And then obviously basal rates are nice too. As of right now, I have 2 basal programs, one for PMS and one for normal, that I had set up originally after basal testing. And there's also temp basal presets. So for right now, I have an 80% increase when I'm in my clinic class for dental hygiene. And then when I am exercising, I have a 75% decrease for a duration of 4 hours. The 80% increase in clinic is for a duration of 3 hours. So you can add all these customizable presets, temp basals, basal rates, customizable foods to make things more applicable to your life, and that you don't always have to pull things out of your head and go, oh gee, how much did I decrease for this time? You know, you don't have to remember that. If you customize it right away and obviously write it down on a piece of paper too, because if, like me, you're going to get a new PDM, make sure you have it written down so that you can quickly go add that when the new PDM is set up. So what are my final thoughts? This is the 10th thing I'm going to talk about, is my final thoughts and comments and recommendations on the Omnipod DASH system. So first of all, I would give this system overall a rating of 8 out of 10. The things that I don't care for is obviously having a separate blood sugar meter. I do think that this, because it's so new, that there's so many errors going on with it, like the G6, I do think that the Dash was released just a bit too early. I think they needed to go through a little bit more testing or a little bit more revision before they sent it off to people. Maybe they should have waited till this fall or the following year to get people introduced to this, because I think they pushed this out a little bit too quickly, and that's why I think I'm having all these issues with errors. Now, some of you that have switched to the Dash system from the old system, or have just gotten on the Dash system like me, may not have problems. You may be totally fine. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's more people having issues, because when I call customer service, there's always a wait time of at least 20 to 30 minutes, because they have the dash. When you press call for customer service, they have dash people directed to a different customer service line. So I can only imagine that they're having issues with PDMs and pods with this new system, and I'm not surprised because it's new. I do think that this PDM definitely needs some improvements. It needs to be made more durable. The touchscreen's got to be adjusted, and a few other things to go along with it. And I just feel like it looked so new that I would be afraid to put this anywhere temporarily, because I would feel like somebody would steal it and think it's some sort of really expensive, worthy iPhone or Android phone, when in reality it's just a cheap locked smartphone that basically communicates with an insulin pump or a medical device. But would I recommend this system for anybody? Absolutely. I'm going to explain more why I chose the Omnipod in the first place, but I love the ease of use. I love that there's no tubes. I love that it's so simple, and that there's only really a couple things that you need. You need pods and a PDM to really maneuver and work the system, and of course, insulin. But overall, I absolutely love it, and I am just so in love with the Omnipod DASH. And my first month on it, while it was rough, it was more of an issue with doses not properly set, and that is the fault of my endo team, and it is my fault for not standing up and saying, hey, this doesn't make sense. Why would you think I need so much less insulin? Do you think that my pancreas just magically started working again? No. So overall, my first month experience was good, and I only hope for it to get better as I go forward here, and I only hope for the Omnipod DASH system to get better, like the Dexcom G6. I foresee that system getting better and more improved as time goes on. So I'm now finished with talking about the 1 month review of the Omnipod DASH. Now I'm going to set up my new PDM for you guys and kind of go through how that is done. Not very difficult to do. And then once that is done, I will upload data to Gluco, and then I will put this in my bag, send it via FedEx back to the Omnipod customer service team for them to look at and inspect this PDM and see what kind of went wrong or whatever they need to do with it. And we'll go from there. So stay tuned for part number 2 of this video. This video is probably going to be extremely long, but I hope you enjoyed it. So let's get started with part number 2. So the PDM replacement comes in this really nice magnetic case. I'm actually saving both of these boxes, and I will use them for like Christmas gifts or something because they're really nice and they're magnetic. But here is my replacement PDM, and it comes with a new battery, but I have the same charging cord from previous, and I'm going to take off the gel skin from my old one. I'm going to set my old one up here so that I have them separated so I don't accidentally send them back the new one. That would not be good. So first of all, if you open it up, there's just a film on here. First thing you want to do is there's a back here, and you just pull straight back, and it actually opens up the back. There we go. So this is where you put the battery in. It is a rechargeable battery by New Mobile. As soon as I open up the battery here, we'll be all good to go. And you should be able to just, there, snaps into place like that. I'm going to be talking more about like the specs of the PDM, like the Dash PDM. But on the back is just like all your information for like your serial number and lot number and stuff, in case you need that information. But that's also found on the menu of your old PDM. If you go under About, it will give the PDM serial number and the date it was activated and stuff. And that's what you often will give them and on the phone if they need that for a reference. So now that this is back on, there is a film. So I'm just going to peel that off. So now that we have the back and everything put on here, I'm going to quick take the little, there's a little cloth cleaner that it comes with, and I'm just going to take that and wipe the new one off. Random fact that is a fake looking camera. I have no clue why they have a fake camera on the back. It's just like to make it look like a smartphone or something. I don't know. I don't know why you would add things that don't even work. Like, why would you have buttons that don't function? It doesn't really make sense to me. Because to me, why would you make something and not have something function? But, you know what? not my product, I guess, but this case is a little bit dirty, but this is an original like rubber case I got when you bought the original system. So because they don't include an extra charging cable or this, I'm going to transfer to my new PDM here. And obviously I have to deactivate my pod on my old PDM first before I take and put a new pod on, and then when I put the new pod on, I will put it with the new PDM. Just like that. There it is, and all I have to do is hit the on button and it should come right on. There we go. So while that's loading, like I said, I have all my settings here, and even all my like additional random ones I've come up with that really have helped me. That's what's in here. So I'm going to set this up quick. So first thing it says is unlock PDM. Unlock to begin PDM setup. So I'm just going to swipe to unlock. Select my language, which is English. And then it's asked you to certify that you're 18 years or older. Continue. That says welcome. Begin setup. Lock screen message. I'm just going to put my name on here. So I'm just going to put Maddie Nielsen as what you all know me by. But you can also, like I said, put a phone number on here in case something were to happen and it were to get lost and somebody finds it. They can at least call you and return your brains of your insulin pump. So I just put Maddie Nielsen on here for the sake of this video, and I'll go back and put my number on here when I'm done. But hit continue, and you can put your own background on here. It looks like they added some more different backgrounds than what they had before. So I'm going to go with the tulips like I had the last time. Hit continue. Then it's going to ask you to select your pin, so I'm going to put a pin in. Obviously not going to tell you what that is, but it was the same one as my old one. Selecting a time zone, we are obviously, for me, I'm in Chicago time because I am in Wisconsin, and that is the closest time zone, which is Central Standard Time for those of you that don't know where that is, but I should select time zone for Chicago. Hit continue, select current time. I usually do the 12-hour time, but you can also do 24-hour time if you wanted to do like military time, whereas if you wanted 11 p.m., that would be 2300 hours. So the time right now is 3:30 p.m. and today's date is June 18th. And you can select the way you want it too. You can have the day first, the year first, the month first, it doesn't matter. So this is June 18th, 2019. Then it confirms it. I am in time zone Chicago. Time is 3:30 p.m. and the date is 6/18/2019. Review time. Continue. Great. Now they're going to build the profile. So now I'm going to set up profile. So now it's going to go through and walk me through setting up basal insulin. So max basal rate that they want me to never go above is 2 units per hour. So I'm going to go ahead and set per 2 units. Hit next. Create basal program. So this, mine is basal 1. And I'm going to label it as basal 1, and it's going to be ready for review. I'm just going to go through and review that quick. 12 to 6 a.m. 0.4, 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. 0.45, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. 0.35, and 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. is 0.4. So I'm going to save that now. Temp basal rates, yes, I want to turn that on. So all you have to do is toggle that on. There's a little button here. You can see it's on. Now it's off. Now I'm going to turn it back on and hit next. Now it says part 3, blood glucose, the amount of glucose given and the amount of blood. So hit next. Set upper and lower blood sugar limits. So my lower limit is 70, my upper limit is 140, and that's what I have put on here, and that's what it actually says, which is interesting that it's already up here. So I'm going to hit next. Now it says to pair my meter. So I'm just going to use my original meter here. So I'm going to turn it on and holding the meter's OK button for 10 seconds or until you see the flashing blue light. Then tap start search. The key with this is that you have to hold it until the light turns blue. Now I'm reusing the same meter that I have, so now it's going to start the search. Sorry, I had to go back and use the Potter Resource Guide, and I went through and repaired the meter. Now we're on to step 3, to the bolus calculator. So yes, we want that on. Target blood sugar incorrect above a certain level. So I'm going to hit next. So target blood sugar level I have from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. My target blood sugar is 100. And we're going to correct any blood sugar above 140. So that's good. Hit next. Minimum blood sugar for calculations, we have 70 milligrams per deciliter. You can have it anywhere from 50 to 70, but to me, why would you be calculating for insulin dose when your blood sugar is low? So 70 is perfect. Setting insulin to carb ratios, I have 1/10 for all meals right now, but I do have them broken down into segments from like midnight to 11 a.m. was when I would typically have breakfast. 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. is the time period of when I could eat lunch. 5 p.m. to, midnight would be the time period for dinner or supper. So I have them broken up just in case I do have to do a mixed ratio ever again, or I want to make more customizable ones for different times. So correction factor. So that means how much 1 unit will drop your blood sugar. My correction factor, I have it all the same and it works really well for me. 1 unit decreases my blood sugar by 70 milligrams per deciliter. So I'm insulin sensitive, but not wicked insulin sensitive, if that makes sense. When I was honeymooning or only on 1 injection back last September, 1 unit dropped my blood sugar 150. So I'm now 1 unit dropped me 70. So, and I feel like right now that I'm like before my period, I definitely feel like the drop isn't that I'm not as sensitive. I'm probably closer to 60 or 50. 1 unit drops me that, but I still keep it all the same. And I'm just mindful that if I have to do like a bold with insulin or a micro bolus to kind of cover for that, that's not a big deal to me. I'm very flexible in my management, as if you guys can tell. Not all 2 days are the same, and not all the time is 1 unit going to drop me 70. I would say 90% of the time it works, but not all the time. So we're going to save that. Reverse correction. They originally put this on, but I don't like it, and I've had it off for about 2.5 weeks now. I only had it on for like a few days when I started the pump. They were all freaking nervous that it was causing a lull, but basically a reverse correction, what it does is if my blood sugar is below 100, it will automatically deduct so much insulin off my bolus to force my blood sugar to get to at least 100 before I eat, which to me is absolutely stupid, because a blood sugar of 70 to 99 is perfect for eating. Actually, I like to be below 110 when I eat, because if I make a big mistake or I miscalculate carbs or something totally goes haywire, if my blood sugar skyrockets 100 points from a blood sugar of 80 or 90, I'm not even going to hit 200. Now, if I start off with a blood sugar of 100, or it forces my blood sugar to stay at a blood sugar of 100, and I skyrocket 100 points, guess what? My blood sugar is already at 200 at that point. So I'm turning it off. I don't like it. I don't care what my endo team thinks, because I'm the one who manages my diabetes. So therefore, I've not had lows from it. And I never reverse corrected when I was on injections. The only thing I did different is if my blood sugar was low before a meal, I would eat and correct for that low first, get my blood sugar back up above 70, and then, and only then, would I bolus for my meal. Why would I reverse correct? I'm going to talk about this in the future, but no to reverse correction. Now, duration of insulin action, they have 3 hours on here, and that seems to be pretty good for me. When I was on injections, I could get away with full big doses every 2 to 2.5 hours, but because it's a little better absorption on the pump, I still have it at every 3 hours, and no matter what the circumstance, I will override the pump in any circumstance that I need to keep my blood sugars between 70 and 140. That is something my team does not understand, is that I work my hiney off to keep my blood sugars between 70 and 140 as most of the time as I can, because it's only going to lead to a healthier life down the road. So the duration insulin action beyond that is 3 hours. Max bolus, they don't want me bolusing anything more than 10 units, which to me is fine, because I never really have meals that are bigger than 100 carbs. I think the biggest meal I've had since I've been diagnosed has been 95 carbs, and that would be like 9.5 units for me. So, good enough. Allow extended bolus. Yes, we want that on. Extended bolus allows you to give so much up front and a rest over a period of a certain amount of time so that it doesn't dump all at once. The only food I find that this works well for me is pizza. Other than that, I prefer to use, like with rice, I prefer to use a temp basil in the background in addition to my bolus. But extended bolus, also an extended bolus would work well if you're munching, like at a party and you're munching on all kinds of snacky foods. That's another great example of when you would use an extended bolus. Alright. So now that I went through and this whole thing is activated, it says no pod. So this is now ready for a new Omnipod. But this is all I'm going to do for now. But I will show you the process of how you put the stuff in the bag. So they send you all the stuff you need. PDMs get wrapped in bubble wrap. Otherwise, things get stuck in bags. So if you are returning a PDM, you first wrap it in bubble wrap, and then you place it in a red bag. And then from the red bag, it goes into this brown envelope. And from the brown envelope, it goes into this gray bag. And from the gray bag, you then slap the label on. Then it will be overnighted to them, 1 day overnight free. So they pay for all the shipping. You just drop it off at any FedEx or post office location. And from there, you can get everything sent on your way. They didn't ask for the pod, but I'm still going to send it anyway, just in case, because it just automatically shut off, in case they need to investigate that, and because they may need to do something with it. I'm going to send them the pod too, in addition to the old PDM. But before I throw this old PDM away, or throw it in the bag, I have to first put a new pump on, and then I have to pair or sync the rest of my data to glucose so that nothing gets missed. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this very long video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit the subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. And until next time for another video, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye everyone.